You're listening to the Martin Clinic Wellness Podcast. This is the show where we bring you the best tips, tricks, and nutritional hacks to help you and your family get healthier. You will also hear what works and doesn't work so that you don't have to waste your time and money. All right, let's get started. Hello, my name is Dr. Tony Martin Jr. of the Martin Clinic, and I'm here with my dad, Dr. Tony Martin Sr., also of the Martin Clinic. And today we want to talk about a study that, we came across last week. And, we were talking a lot about this off the air because, it is, we know these things, but it's still surprising, again, when you come across and you hear this. And, of course, we're referring to a study that showed that basically phthalates, which are found in many household plastics, they found that these household plastics are actually disrupting thyroid function as little girls as young as 3 years old are showing the effect that these plastics are having on their thyroid. And what they found is that it may actually be not only affecting their thyroid, but it actually may be affecting the brain development. And it makes sense because the thyroid is such a, it's the master gland in a lot of ways, right? So it definitely is having an effect on even their brain development. So what we want to do today is we'll talk about this study a little bit. We'll talk about some things you can do to protect yourself. And we'll also talk in general about endocrine disruptors in this episode. So again, thank you for joining us. So first, let's talk about the general term endocrine disruptors and what that means.
Well, listen, especially women, okay, because I always tell my female patients that women are complicated, right, because their endocrine system, and when we say endocrine, let's include the thyroid, the main ones, the adrenals, the ovaries, your pancreas, this is the endocrine system. And the endocrine system works much differently in a woman in a sense that they're all connected. Like, it's not that men don't have a thyroid or men don't have adrenal glands, but men don't have ovaries, that's for sure. So it's obviously, women live within a balance of hormones, and men, not so much.
And that's
right?
something that we talk about in our Metabolic Storm program, where we help women fix their hormones.
Yeah.
How those three are connected, which is why, a lot of women with hormonal issues don't just get symptoms of thyroid. When they start to look up their symptoms online, they're like, oh, I got some symptoms of adrenals. I got some symptom of estrogen dominance, and my thyroid symptoms are there as well. And again, it's because if one's affected, they all get affected.
Yeah.
Really quickly.
Yeah, they do. And it's interesting that this particular study was showing that it didn't seem to hit young boys, but it was hitting girls, and as early as 3 years old. And again, when you think of the impact, the significance of that is incredible, because women today are being bombarded. We live in a different world.
Before we talk about why that matters for the little girls and the effect that it has, let's, when it comes to endocrine disruptors. So an endocrine disruptor is basically any chemical that essentially will disrupt your endocrine system. So they'll disrupt your hormones. And a lot of times, there's a whole class of these endocrine disruptors that are basically what they call xenoestrogens, right?
Yeah.
And a xenoestrogen is basically a fancy way of saying a chemical that looks a lot like estrogen. So your body assumes it's estrogen, and it throws your hormones out of whack because your body thinks it's surrounded by a lot of estrogen. So there are a lot of, again, we've mentioned this before, but your skin is your largest organ.
Yeah.
And a lot of people throw makeup and lotions
sunscreen
and all over their skin.
Antibacterial soaps. The worst thing in the universe that's been created.
And they mimic estrogen.
They stupid soaps that you put right on your skin,
killing all the good bacteria that's supposed to be there.
And you're adding these phthalates and parabens and
all these estrogen, the xenoestrogens. And so what they're doing is they're really wreaking havoc on, hormone for women. Now, for men, you're not, again, completely escaping from this, because a lot of these xenoestrogens actually cause a decrease in testosterone. I remember reading a study of even some of these scented stuff that they have in showers, perfume or like scented body washes, that it actually causes a decrease in testosterone levels. Yeah. So men are definitely affected by these.
And then what happens with that, right? So what makes obviously a man needs testosterone, and but your prostate needs testosterone, right?
Well,
so when you think of if your testosterone men is going
heart,
down,
brain,
yeah,
muscle building, there's so many aspects of testosterone. Even in women, when a woman gets low testosterone levels, it affects a whole whack of things for them. There are a lot of women that are walking around with estrogen dominance, and as a result of it, they got way too low levels of testosterone, which again affects muscle building, it affects their brain, it affects their sex drive, weight loss, a whole bunch of things like that. And then there are some other things that actually causes too much testosterone in women, which if we have time, we could talk about at the end of the well. So you have these endocrine disruptors that are everywhere. And this study specifically looks at phthalates, which are found in plastics. And what is also interesting, I saw another study that showed that those who are eating fast food have anywhere between 24% and 40% more phthalate exposure than somebody who's not eating fast food a lot. So they didn't really define what a lot was, but it goes to show you again. And the idea again is it's processed foods. Yeah. Things that are in packagings, right? Things that are in packages, they contain these phthalates, and it's just causing a lot of issues. And, processed foods really are a double whammy. And we were talking about this off air because not only does it increase your risk of all these chemical exposures, it also, basically increases your intake of, these vegetable oils, which, I mean, the more you read on the effect that these vegetable oils are having on our body.
Inflammatory.
So inflammatory, autoimmune disorders.
Yeah. So they're saying today, I read a study today, and I haven't been able to have a good look at it, but it's saying that they're estimating now 1 out of 5 people in North America have an autoimmune disorder.
Well, and you see it. I mean, you see it in practice every day. It's growing and growing.
It just seems
the body is attacking itself again. We did a podcast a long time ago on how, inflammation is the new fever, right? I mean, it used to be you pick up a bacteria infection or a viral infection, you get a fever, and that told you that there was something wrong with you, right? Now, fevers are not that they're not common. There's a new type of fever going on inside the body, and that's inflammation.
Yeah, and often silent
killer.
It's slower. It's a slower death, but inflammation will kill you, right?
So what's interesting is that, and we'll talk about the thyroid coming up here a little bit, but phthalates have also, if you look them up, they've been linked to a lot of different types of health effects, aside from hormone disruption, right? We'll talk about that now. But it definitely can affect the lungs, increase the risk of asthma, which, again, it's interesting. There are a lot of kids who have asthma for a couple of reasons. One, dairy. Some kids just can't process dairy. As a result, their body's making way more mucus, fills their lungs, and they're wheezing, which is why a lot of kids, when they get off dairy, it's amazing. Another thing would be the gluten intolerance. A big aspect of that. Heavy use of antibiotics, as when they're younger, or the mother when they're they're pregnant, definitely affects the bacteria, the good bacteria in the lungs. Insulin, but another one is vegetable oils, inflammation. Mm-hmm. But then there's also a link with these phthalates, right? So it causes asthma, and then again, attention deficit disorder. There's these chemicals, again, the effect that it's having on the brains, learning disabilities, and then obviously obesity.
And then they kill, and one of the mechanisms that they hurt the brain is they're crossing the blood-brain barrier because of leaky gut, leaky brain. Not enough friendly bacteria. Again, all of the above things that you mentioned just a minute ago about what some of the causes are, bad diets and antibiotics and, the environment in which we live. Well, the double whammo is that it kills these phthalates and these chemicals, in the body will kill your friendly bacteria. You don't have enough friendly bacteria. Now these things are getting across into the brain, where the brain is becoming like a toxic soup, right?
And one of the issues that I have with when it comes to these chemicals, and we've talked about this before, if I'm a chemical company and I got to show my chemical safe, so I'll run studies showing that my chemical safe, and I'll also show what the level of toxicity is, and what a safe dosage of my chemical is, and everything's fine. My chemical gets passed, and you can use it. But what they don't do is they do not study the combination, because you're not just exposed to one chemical.
Exactly right.
You're exposed to so many, and that's one of the issues.
That's why safety tests have never been done. With the combination of chemicals, they just never do them.
No, and that's the thing, right?
But isn't it interesting, though, that if you go, we live in an industrial area. If you go to the mines and, just because of the safety of the men, like the chemicals that we use in our homes are not...
No, they need training for them. They need almost hazmat
training
suits
just to handle them, right? They do not let them on the work site without being, so it's absolutely incredible.
Well, I remember, when the first Batman movie came out with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, and it was interesting because, one of the schemes that the Joker had was putting these toxic chemicals into everyday, household products and cosmetics. But what's interesting was it was the combination of all the stuff that he put in all these things that when combined created the issue. And that's really a sad commentary of what's going on today. It's the fact that, again, if I'm a company, I could test my chemical safe, but if you combine it with everything else, that's the problem. So what's happening is that, to give you an example, the scope of issue that this is, you can't sit here listening and say, you know what, well, I'm really not worried, it's not affecting me. When they tested urine, when they tested the urine of people and they checked them for phthalates, they found phthalates in 98% of the people. So every one of us are walking around with phthalates. And what's also interesting is they've measured sweat, urine, and serum. And what they found is that they will show up in the sweat, but not in the serum or the urine. So they definitely can build up inside the body. They could deposit in other areas and not in some areas. So you get tested, and it's like, I'm fine.
I don't have them.
But that's not. So now they're, I saw this one study how they recommend sweat testing as well for these things. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we live on planet Earth, and you say this. We're going to come into contact with these things. There's no question, right? Yeah. These are going to be some serious things that we're going to come into contact with. So there are, and we'll talk about a few things that we recommend that you do, because you do live on planet Earth.
Yeah, and you're not gonna head off to a little island that has nothing and live on your own and live off the land and good luck with that.
Yeah, so
I mean,
we'll end the podcast by talking about a couple of things. Yeah. But before we go on, let's talk a little bit about this study again, about that of specifically of how it's affecting the thyroid function in little 3-year-old girls, as young as that it's affecting. Now, as we mentioned, the thyroid gland is the master gland. You always kind of give the analogy of the gas pedal. Right, it's the gas pedal for the body. Yeah. So when your thyroid is functioning normal, your metabolism is functioning normal.
Yeah, it's your furnace.
Your energy is functioning normal. Yeah. Everything's going well. But when your thyroid slows down, that's people run into a lot of problems with that. Or when it speeds up, people run into a lot of problem with that. So it's pretty scary to think that these phthalates are affecting the thyroids, right? And really setting up for lifelong thyroid issues with their, and again,
almost specific to women rather than men, right? Like it's got a preference for sex. It does. It goes.
Well, it seems to be female, affecting right? the little girls,
and we see that. We see that in our clinic all the time, right? I mean, when you look at thyroid issues, right? I always tell patients, I'll often chat with my patients and say, follow me for a week, for a month, And you'll see what I do in the office, and you'll get a good understanding of, what is going on in the world today. And when, men to come in, not that we never see thyroid issues in men, of course we do, but it's rare. And compared to women, and yet thyroid doesn't act independently.
No.
It's not on its own.
No, the
so it
thyroid is
has-
a puppet,
Yeah.
right? And people forget that. The thyroid just does not make a decision on its own. It's controlled by the hypothalamus, pituitary. So it has bosses, and it's doing what it's told to do. And, there's a lot of things there's a lot of chemical reactions that are caused by the thyroid. For example, a majority of the hormone produced by the thyroid is in the form of T4, but T3 is the active form, so T4 has to be converted into T3, and a lot of that conversion takes place in the liver. So you can already see the problem there.
Yeah.
So anything that can affect the liver can affect the thyroid.
Yeah.
Anything that affects the conversion of T4 to T3 can affect the thyroid. So there's a lot of things that can affect the thyroid.
You got a gummed up liver, and you got lots of toxins. Here we go, right?
What's one of the things that affects the liver? Insulin resistance.
Yeah.
Insulin.
Yeah. A lot of fatty deposit.
You could think of all the reasons why the thyroid just stops to function normally. So then you're adding chemicals to the mix. Estrogen already affects estrogen can block the creation of certain thyroid hormones. So if a chemical mimics estrogen and your body thinks it's getting too much, it can shut down a lot of these things. So it can affect the thyroid. There are a lot of women who are walking around with thyroid symptoms who have estrogen issues.
Yeah, and undiagnosed because
That's right.
the blood test, the routine blood tests for the thyroid are just so unrevealing. Really, there's subclinical thyroid issues that just, and women are frustrated because they got every symptom, and yet the lab test, the lab technician tells the doctor. This is what drives me crazy.
Well, and that's the annoying thing, right?
The lab technician tells a medical doctor that, no, that patient doesn't have a
this is a
thyroid
normal
issue.
scenario. I'm coming to you, and I'm telling you, I'm reading off essentially, if I were to Google thyroid symptoms and I came in and I would be reading them off. My energy's low, metabolism's slow, cold hands, cold feet, my hair's falling out, my eyebrows are thinning, my skin's
nails,
dry, nails
my
are
bowel, I got constipation,
everything. I could be reading this off, and then the doctor's like, okay, let's get your thyroid checked. Send it to the lab. Lab comes back, oh, you know what? Your thyroid's normal. Your thyroid levels are normal.
Yeah.
Therefore, let's just discount all those symptoms that you're complaining of, even though everything is screaming thyroid. Sorry, a lab test came back and said you're normal, so it's not your thyroid. It's in your head, or it's something else, right? So that's extremely frustrating.
Well, I think that's what sort of sets us apart in a way, the Martin Clinic, because we do the biomarker testing. We look for different, we think outside the box. We do the testing outside the box. We look at.
Well, and I think we approach the thyroid knowing that there are other things involved as well.
Yeah.
So our approach is definitely
right?
different. Our approach is definitely different. So, all right, let's end this episode by talking about a few things, because again, we live on planet Earth. Everyone listening to this is going to eat fast food at some point. They're going to eat processed food. They're going to eat out of packages. So they're exposed
They're going to use underarm deodorant.
Yeah, we're exposed to these things. So, all right, let's talk a couple of practical things that they can do, to help counter the effects of that.
Yeah. Well, the number one thing that I would tell them to do is take probiotics. In terms of a supplement, take probiotics. And the reason is, again, because these things kill your battle in your body essentially is a battle between good and bad, right? It's an evil bacteria and good bacteria, and you need to have more good than bad, because these good bacteria, it really helps in protecting the body against the onslaught of these environmental toxins, right?
Your digestive system contains about 80% of your endocrine system.
Yeah.
So if you got an unhealthy gut, you have an unhealthy hormonal system.
You got more hormones in your gut than you have in your brain.
which is people have a hard time realizing that. So
More serotonin.
if you have inflammation in your gut, you definitely have issues with your hormonal system.
Yeah.
So that's why probiotics.
Yeah.
And another thing that's surprising, and most people don't realize this, is that probiotics have been shown to boost. It's like the precursor to a lot of glutathione, which glutathione is your master antioxidant, but it's also how you detoxify. It's a sulfur-based, sticks to stuff, gets rid of it. You need glutathione to detoxify, to get rid of these chemicals. So you have a natural source of this in your body, glutathione, and probiotics play a big role in glutathione production. So if you want to detox naturally, probiotics play a big role in that. So definitely, which leads us to the second recommendation, which is Navitol, which contains our pine bark extract.
Which again elevates
It boosts glutathione.
Boosts glutathione, absolutely.
And not only that, so not only does it boost glutathione and it helps with, natural detoxification, glutathione also, one of the major roles is it recycles antioxidants. And a big component of chemicals is free radical damage, which leads to premature aging of the cells and defects and all these breakdowns. So Navitol, the pine bark helps boost glutathione, which helps recycle your antioxidants, which helps you fight against these things. Also, pine bark extract in itself is a very powerful antioxidant. Yeah. So not only does it internally boost glutathione, it is also an antioxidant itself.
Yeah, that literally rust-proofs your cells.
It's fantastic,
it's
right?
Unreal.
So because we live in a polluted world, a toxic soup, chemicals everywhere, it only makes sense to take Navitol. And little kids, absolutely.
Yeah.
I used to give that. My kids still take it, but they were little ones, and we just break the capsule open and put it in a little bit of food, and they had no idea.
Yeah.
And they've been taking it for a long time. It's just, again, we live in a polluted, toxic world. So there's two supplements that we definitely would recommend for today.
The top two, for sure.
Can't stress enough, again, drink a lot of water.
Yeah, flush.
Drink a lot of water. We've done a podcast before on water. We talk about spring water, natural spring water. People always ask us, what kind of water you recommend? So we usually recommend a natural spring water for that. So those are the big things that we would definitely recommend to start with.
And don't heat up your water, like in the sense that if it's in plastic, because, you're not going to get away from plastic, by the way, in the world. Like, good luck with that again. But as much as you can, you don't heat that plastic, because that makes the phthalates that they come out of there, a lot worse. So those are things you can do, right?
And again, if you have a young child, then seriously consider limiting processed or fast foods, even though that's who it's marketed towards. Those little Happy Meals, and every Disney character under the sun is promoting some kind of Happy Meal. But just keep in mind again that is a high source of exposure for these phthalates and all these other things, vegetable oils, again, which is, as you mentioned, the increase in autoimmune disorders. So again, we give you a lot of information in this podcast on phthalates and the effect it has on thyroid. If you have any questions, you can email us at info@martinclinic.com. Also, we have a course specifically designed to help with hormones called the Metabolic Storm. So you can
look that up.
You can also get some more information on that. So again, we want to thank you for listening, and be sure to join us again for the next episode. You've been listening to the Martin Clinic Wellness Podcast, brought to you by martinclinic.com. We are truly thankful that you took the time out of your busy day to listen. Talk soon.